Hi everyone, welcome to day 19 of the Learn How to Study Abroad in 30 Days series. In today's video, we're going to be talking about managing stress as you wait to hear back on decisions about your study abroad program. So once you actually submit your application, everything is out of your hands. It can be a very stressful time. And so we're going to talk about some of the ways that you can move forward within this period, do different things, and at least get planning on plans B, C, maybe even D, as you wait to hear back on decisions. We're going to go ahead and get started now. So for day 19 of our 30-day series, we're going to be talking about the waiting game of trying to wait back and hear from your study abroad programs and how you can manage stress for that. So just to kind of point out, I know that the waiting game can be very stressful. This is probably the most stressful period throughout your time of doing all of this outside of just doing your essays and doing the application, and if you had to do any testing or anything like that. But there's nothing where it feels as stressful as when it's out of your hands. And once you submit your application, it really is out of your hands. You have done everything that you can do. And the only thing that you can do now is just to wait. So I always like to tell the students that I work with that you want to be very mindful of a couple of things. So for starters, you want to just keep some perspective of any type of information the program has given you on when they're going to be getting back in touch. So if you know that right now it is the 15th of the month and they have said that we're going to be letting students know by the 30th, between the 30th and the 31st of whatever month it is, then you don't need to be stressing out every single day because you know that, well, the decision's not going to come out until the 30th or the 31st. So I am not going to be hearing anything back. You always know that sometimes that could be a little bit earlier, but it at least should give you some peace of mind. The other thing that I want you to do as well, and I have to say that I have been this person, so I know what this feels like, and it just adds more agony, is I don't want you to be a refresh warrior, as I like to call it. So someone who is just constantly going to be refreshing their email or refreshing their voicemail, if that's how you think they're going to reach out to you, or refresh, even if it's very old school and they're saying that we're sending it through the mail, and so you're going to be every day going back multiple times to check your mailbox. You don't want to do that. You're going to drive yourself crazy, and it's not worth it. The decision is going to come through when it comes through, and while you want to be eager and you want to hear more, it's going to happen when it happens, and so you're only going to be adding more stress to yourself by doing that. So definitely stay away from constantly refreshing and from looking. You're going to hear in due time, but I understand what this process feels like. I have been there. But you have to give yourself that perspective to know that it is out of your hands and there's only so much you can do. Now, I do definitely want you to cancel your trip to What If World. So I feel like a lot of times once we get into that space of we can't control it, so we're just going to jump to the worst case scenario. It's just like anything else where it's like you feel like, well, what could happen? What if this happens? What if, I don't get in? What if this and this? We're going to talk more about that in a second, but I just want you to cancel your trip there because, again, that tends to add much more stress than you would have needed to have in the beginning. You cannot control any of this. Even if at the worst case scenario you don't get in, you don't want to take it personally. It is not your fault. It just means that it was not your time with that particular program, or maybe that is not the direction that the universe or God or whoever you believe in wanted you to go in. But you don't want to just go to what if. You want to give the process its rightful due. So you've gone through and done your part, and now you want to make sure that you are giving it its rightful due to say, well, I did everything that I could. I did it the way they asked me to, and now I'm going to let the process play out. So don't skip ahead to the worst case scenario. However, I do want you to revisit what we talked about on day 14 of expanding on your plan B, plan C, plan D, E, however many you need, of making sure that you have those queued up. So what is the status of your plan B and C at least? Do you need to do more research on what your plan B or C would be? Do you need to at least kind of figure out when those different deadlines are, just to have things sort of brewing in the background? Again, that's going to help you because that gets your mind off of thinking about plan A and thinking about the worst case scenario, but it also just makes sure that you're on track so that if you do end up in the worst case scenario and you don't get into any of your study abroad programs, that you have a plan B and a plan C. how you decide it when you will need to move forward with these. So again, likely what you're doing, whatever it is, it could be internship, it could be another type of study abroad program, it could just be taking more classes at school. But all these things have deadlines most likely, and so you want to make sure that you are staying ahead of those and that you know when you'll be able to make that decision. Of course, you probably don't want to commit to anything because you're waiting to hear back on your study abroad program decisions, but at least with this instance, you can say, well, I know this is due within the next 6 weeks or however long, and you at least have that in your frontal lobe and you're thinking about it. Are these going to fill the void of not having plan A? So I always like to tell students that you often want to make sure that your plan B, C, D, E, however long you want to go down the alphabet, is going to be able to fill the void of not studying abroad. So it may be where, maybe you're not studying abroad, but maybe you don't want to get a part-time job. Those two things may not be correlated, but maybe you do want to explore different internships or apprenticeships that are more local or at least within your same country. And you just want to sort of acknowledge that, yeah, it's not study abroad, but maybe it's something that you would feel just as excited about doing. It's just in a different format. Last but not least, do you need to add any more letters, as we just talked about? So do you need to go to plan D or E, or do you just need to write out the entire alphabet and have a plan for each of those? Whatever that looks like for you, I just want you to be able to channel some of your energy into that instead of just stressing about not getting in or getting in and then having to figure out how to decide on a program. So definitely revisit day 14 and go deeper into that. Last but not least, I just want to stop here, and if you want to pause the video for a minute, just sit with yourself and say, what is the worst that can happen? I feel that even if we go to what if world, we're just kind of thinking about a lot of different things, but when you actually start to sit with yourself and say, what is the worst that can happen, it becomes a little bit more of an ownership thing where you feel a little bit more in control. And I know that it's a little bit easier as you get older. I know this was something that I did not necessarily do a lot when I was in my 20s and when I was just getting started with study abroad or with anything, even in my career. But as I got older and as I have gotten older and have done more things and have gotten more just comfortable in my own skin and in my own self and in my own abilities, I do just think of it in the sense of what is the worst that can happen? Is it going to be catastrophic in the sense of if I don't get into this program and am I going to lose everything I have? Are my family and friends no longer going to love me? Am I going to lose my health? Whatever it is, it's like you have to put it within context. I think that's the main thing, is putting it into context. Are you going to be disappointed if you don't get in? Most likely that is a human response. That is speaking from the ego. We all have ego. And also too, it was something that you really wanted. So it's not going to be a joyous thing if you don't get in. You're going to be upset about it for a couple of days. But what is the worst that can happen? You don't get in. It doesn't mean that everything is going to be a tragedy from here on out. So I want you to be able to create some perspective around admissions decisions. I know that it can be just overwhelming and you may feel slighted, you may feel like it's unfair. And again, we're just talking worst case here of not getting in. But regardless of that, a lot of times some of the things, and I know that this sounds very kind of hokey because I'm speaking from it from a different perspective, but a lot of times the things that were a closed door, whatever, are often leading you to something better. I can promise you that. I've experienced that multiple times in my life. So maybe that particular program didn't work out, but there's something right around the corner for you. So just try and put everything into perspective as you're going through this process to be admitted to a study abroad program. So hopefully some of the tips within this video have helped to at least calm your nerves a little bit and inspire you to begin planning plan B, plan C, plan D. If you want to go through the whole alphabet, as I said in the video, go for it. But just keep a positive spirit. I know that admissions and waiting to hear back from admissions can be very difficult, but we are always going to hope for a great result. So definitely stay focused, but also make some other plans just in case. I hope that you have gotten some great inspiration from this, and I will see you tomorrow for day 20.